Alright guys, such a comic again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Scrap was quizzed in his chat last night on who the best pistol player in the game is. Some suggestions that it could not be Dashy. Alright guys, such a comic again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Scrap was quizzed in his chat last night on who the best pistol player is in the game, and Scrap, with the opportunity to say himself, says that still Dashy is the man to beat in this regard. But some other entertaining clips coming out of that stream as well. Plenty to get into. Very much into your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you are new as always. Wanted to start here because it was a key talking point after the major on the winners bracket advantage, or lack of it, as we understand. Now, in the CDL, 41.4% of finals have been won from the losers bracket. So the team that wins the losers finals comes to the grand final and wins 41% of the time. Back in the day, that was 23.3% only. Now, there are a couple of reasons for this. The key one, of course, being the format change. That will make up the primary amount of this difference. You could also argue that maybe back in the day, the skill diff between teams like OpTic in their prime and the rest was greater, so that when they would make winners, they would just very rarely lose, whoever they would play. Maybe there's a bit of that. But in the CDL era, we know that for a time, FaZe felt like a substantially better team than others, but yet their record in finals doesn't speak to that. And a large part of that is the format, right? Nowadays, we have best of sevens. It was best of nines not long ago, but effectively straight up BO7 in Black Ops 7 for the championship, with no advantage to the team that hadn't lost so far in the tournament. Now, the debate runs either way in terms of, oh, does the losers team have an advantage? You know, are they hot coming into the finals? The numbers don't really show that to be true, as in the map 1 record of those teams that make the finals is nothing special. In fact, Turtle did a tweet saying that they do lose the majority of them for sure, so that argument is interesting. More than likely, the reason why this isn't 50% is just because typically the better team makes it through the winners bracket, so more often than not, that team is going to win. You know, this isn't a bad percentage exactly. In fact, I'm sure the COD League will look at this and say this is great, because it means that the final is less of a foregone conclusion. The winners team still will win 60% of the time just because they're the better team, right? Because they've made it through winners, rather than because they have any sort of advantage, which, let's be honest, they should have earned. Back in the day, you had the same effect. The better team would make it through winners, but also you had the double whammy that they would then have to lose 2 back-to-back best of 5s in order to lose the championship. Look, I'm still in favour of the 1-0 advantage best of 9 format that we had for the grand finals of the World Championship in 2020 for Modern Warfare 19. I would still be in favour of going back to that. But it is interesting to look back in the day and see it was very, very difficult to win from the losers bracket historically. It only happened on a handful of occasions, one of which was OpTic winning the World Championship in 2017. But the other side of this is that sometimes you got very swift, frankly boring 3-0 slams from the team from winners, and the final was just incredibly underwhelming. So that's interesting, your thoughts on that. This also from John, another graphic that he's put out here. I appreciate this is a bit messy, but I thought at least what he's trying to show here is kind of interesting. He's comparing damage per 10 minutes with assists per 10 minutes. So trying to find like who are the best team players, who are in the best positions to trade or to get traded, you know, who's playing on more of an island. I'm not surprised to see Shotzzy quite far down this list, because just his playstyle in general, not to say that it's a bad thing exactly, there's, you know, just two sides of the coin. But Shotzzy is often playing a route, he's more isolated, so his assist numbers are going to be lower than, I mean, Sky's is surprisingly, not maybe surprisingly high, but given that Sky's on many of the other numbers and statistics is quite low, this one he's very, very high in terms of hardpoint assists per 10. Nium is top, but of course, very, very small sample size there. It's really Ghosty, Sib. I think what's impressive to me is the Gentlemates. All of the Gentlemates are above the line. So above, you know, the trend line. You've got Envoy is here, Neptune is here, Sib and Ghosty. So they're all getting more assists per 10 than most. At least it appears that way, which is pretty good going, I think. The Cloud9 boys kind of all over the place, but again, only one series that those guys have played, so we'll see how it all plays out when things get a little bit further. But yeah, just thought that was a little bit interesting to look at. But a couple of bits of drama to get into, one of which is this. So we've got a new show on the Breaking Point channel, the Doug and Don show, and they go through the topics and they debate it. Doug always will have some interesting takes. Now, he was talking a fair bit about Beans, right? So Beans was on that Toronto team, and well, then Mercules happened, unfortunately for Beans' career, but also he was on Boston back in the day. He played with Doug, part of the Boston Academy. Doug didn't seem to be a big fan of that. I think he implied that old roster back in the day when he played with Beans was, you know, more of the Beans show than it was the Boston Academy show. So it does seem like Doug has some historical pent-up frustration about Beans, and well, he decides that in fact it was Beans' fault that Insight has been getting slammed.
This game, there's been so many people calling for Insight's job. Last year they were calling for Insight's job. I'm gonna keep it a buck, man. It all depends on the players you have in your team. With a player like Beans, there's always going to be a player on your team dropping a 0.8 because of how Beans plays COD. It's straight up the truth. Look at every team he played on. I'm not trying to roast my boy Ben. I'm just trying to say when Beans plays the game with you, he deals a lot of damage. He gets a lot of fights. He's aggressive to get to his spots. But sometimes it messes with the flow of the overall team. And I feel like with Insight, ever since he played with Beans, that's when this conversation began. I'm not blaming Beans here. I'm just saying this is when this conversation began. Now, I'm pissed because players like Insight, in my opinion, are amazing players to have on a team. He's been consistent for 5+ years. You don't just lose your fingers and your thumbs as a player. You kind of just go through these highs and these lows, and obviously he's going through a low, but to break up a core of a team that works super, super well isn't always the answer. You see it a lot with Simp, aBeZy, Cellium. You're seeing aBeZy and Cellium not get the same results. Even Simp at times isn't doing as well as he was with aBeZy and Cell. Sometimes the wheel doesn't have to get reinvented. Sometimes you're extremely good and you're trying to get first, but when you're risking making these changes, putting Kips in, putting ReeaL in, switching the roles, taking ReeaL out, Kips is in, maybe Insight's out, and maybe they want to get nasty, right? Like that's the rumor. Dude, we're overthinking this too much. The more you do all these changes and try to overthink and fix and tweak all these little things, it's only going to get worse. And that's what's happening right now with Toronto.
Beans doesn't buy this take so much in the replies, but yeah, nonetheless, intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Doug will always have a take. Whether you like it or not is a different question. But Scrap was also live on stream. Ghosty says in his chat, at Scrap, you sold me to raise your salary. That's insane. I do wonder what happened to Scrap's salary. I don't imagine that it went up this year. What do we think, right? He signed a 2-year contract with Los Angeles Thieves. Same story with HyDra. And we understand that Nejra even might have taken a pay cut. No, actually, he did say this, didn't he? He took like a 200k pay cut to make that whole thing happen. Now, yeah, Ghosty was sold eventually to the Gentlemates, but they also had to pay a good amount of money, I imagine, on aBeZy's salary. But to be fair, aBeZy was a free agent. They didn't have to buy him out. And they brought in Kenny, who was also on a free as well. So, look, maybe Thieves pocketed a little bit of extra change in that transaction than they might have done otherwise. Will that have gone back into Scrap's pocket? Pretty unlikely, to be honest, but I thought it was entertaining because, well, there's a nice rivalry between those two guys this season, that is for sure. Scrap was also playing some ranked though. He was getting pretty frustrated, but one interesting thing that he was asked was, are you the best pistol player in the game? People want to know, because the pistol's an important part of the meta this year, certainly because the sniper is now properly back in action. The aim assist is gone in the CDL rules, so the pros are all using it. The pistol's a key part, and it's a key part in Overload as well, because you're mandated to use it when you've got the ball. So obviously having an advantage with the pistol is a good thing, and there is definitely a skill gap in the pistol. You know, the trigger finger, being able to stay accurate while firing it fast, it's a big skill gap, and you can tell that even at the pro level. And Scrap says, you know what, as much as I'd love to give myself the gas, I've got to give Brandon the tip on this one.
Yeah, just fucking pathetic shit stains, bro. Fucking horrible. How the fuck are you iridescent?
Why did I bother?
Fuck! Everyone's just so shit. I swear to God. Everyone thinks it's my ego. No, it's just the fucking truth. They're all awful. Fuck!
Time.
Not gonna lie, Scrap might have a better pistol than Dashy. I'll die on the hill. You're tripping, bro. I can't lie. I will tip Brandon. Brandon's probably got the best pistol. That guy's just a retard with it. Like, I don't know. He's just spamming it.
So, of course, LA Thieves back in action this weekend. Their matches are getting somewhat harder over time. In fact, we can actually look at who they play next up because they started out their run with Surge and Ravens. Again, Ravens online, sure, bit of a force, but didn't turn out to be the case. And I think because they beat them on LAN, they didn't really have this, oh my god, Exceeds unbeatable online type situation. They play Toronto and Boston this weekend. That is the run for the Thieves. The weekend after that, they play OpTic and FaZe. Actually, no, they just play OpTic the one weekend after that. Then it's FaZe and Heretics the weekend after that. So, yes, interesting. Their matches definitely get harder. Their final one of the whole stint is against Ghosty and the Gentlemate. So that's Thieves' run from now forwards. This is OpTic's run out of interest. Of course, they played Boston and they played G2 last week. They won both. This weekend, they play Heretics and Cloud9. Then it's Thieves, of course, then Surge, then FaZe. They play Gentlemate and Toronto Falcons towards the end. So, yeah, pretty interesting run that both of these teams have coming up. Just one final thing I wanted to share, because one of the frustrations that I would have if I was one of the pro teams are the skins that we have in the game. Because the skins, and I'm not saying, you may like this skin, you may not. I don't know if it's actually $40. I think it's more like 20 or however it works in terms of the COD points. And we've seen this on the COD mobile game as well, that they have these just spectacular looking skins. There's guns that have like whole war zones playing out on the top of the weapon. And this is the type of stuff, as you know, whether you like it or not, it's like the developers seem to put the time in to stuff like this, and fundamentally this is kind of cool. Whereas the Pro League skins are nowhere near as interesting or as compelling, right? And I think if I was a pro team, I'd find it kind of frustrating because I'm like, well, hang on a second, lads. You're telling me that we need to sell these skins because that's how we're actually going to make some money, but yet the skins that we are allowed to create and do create are just nowhere near as interesting and worth purchasing maybe as some of the other ones. Not to say that they're all bad, but like, it just feels like the effort that's put in to the characters and to the CDL stuff is nowhere near the effort that they put in to some of the other partnerships that they have. So intrigued to your thoughts on that in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.
Our first coach that we had was Spacely. You guys remember Spacely? Because he was like John's boy, like John 287. We had Spacely coach us, right? Yeah, Mike. Guess what? At Champs that year, you know who we lose to winners round 1? We lose to Spacely. He left our team from coaching, went to go play, qualified for Champs, beat us in winners round 1. You know how checky that is? Do you know how fucking checky that is? Like, I swear that I haven't ever even really talked about that, but that happened. That happened. He probably walked away from that feeling like the fucking man. Like, no, I told you I know other shit. I know other shit.
Actually, honestly, with
outside after,
matches, we'll probably get some black.
I knew other shit
too, but
like we were a much better team than Spacey's team. You seen like Mox and like Llama God or some shit. Just ran us like 3-0, bad too. Round 1.
This will be important because teams are so picky.